What is going on, world? I am the Hungarian Experiment, and welcome back to another video where I respond to your YouTube comments. Now, this comment comes from a video I made a while back now called Eat Like Our Ancestors. If you guys are interested, and I really suggest you go check out this video before we discuss these YouTube comments, just because it kind of helps to reinforce what I am saying in response to this person's comment here. If you guys are interested, that video will pop up at the top of your screen right here. You can also find it in the description box below. But basically, this video is about eating like our ancestors and why I feel intermittent fasting is the best type of lifestyle or diet that we can compare to our ancient ancestors and how they live their typical day-to-day lives. So I said, make sure you go check out that video. It's about 8 minutes long, but we'll get right into the comment that came along with this video here from Hans Kamler. And he said, he basically quoted from my video where I said, history followed different courses for different peoples because of differences among people's environments, not because of biological differences among the people themselves. So he says, rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off, what a load of shit. Now this is why I love her, this is why I love the beautiful one. She is very smart and very informative, and she knows a hell of a lot about history. So I already knew a lot of this stuff, or else I wouldn't have made this video in the first place, but I love that she commented here first, and she said, actually, the first and the most important factor that shapes and determines history is geography. The environment a civilization is put into completely determines the survival of said civilization. It all comes down to geography, thus environment. Which is exactly why the first true civilization, that of the Mesopotamians living in the Fertile Crescent, was able to flourish. Ask any historian. Take any history course under the sun, or open even a damn Wikipedia page, and you'll see everyone emphasizes that geography shapes history. Now later on, when we get into my comment and get into a little more of this stuff, we will cover things like the Fertile Crescent and, you know, some pieces of information like Gun, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, where you can go and read this book, and it's going to help reinforce these ideas, because if you don't fully understand this stuff, it's going to seem like a wild and a whole lot of crock of shit. But if you guys understand how it took thousands upon thousands of years for trade routes to open up, for certain farming practices to be instilled, and why it could be instilled in certain areas of the world compared to others, this is going to help your idea and understanding of what we're discussing here. So as I said, if you still haven't watched that video yet, I suggest pausing this video right now and going to check out Eat Like Our Ancestors. But let's get into Hans Kamler's response to the beautiful one here. He responded to her by saying, while environment is very important, dismissing biological differences among humans is stupid. Environment is key for shaping the biological differences among humans. So I don't even know where he's going with this, because he's trying to prove what she said wrong, yet he's proving himself wrong here, because he says, while environment is important, you can't dismiss biological differences. Yet he says the environment is key for shaping the biological differences. Like, what are you even saying here, man? So then he just quotes what she said like he quoted what I said and said funny. Which, again, like, I don't know where this guy's going with this, but anyway. Let's get into my comment and where I respond here. So I said, exactly, man. Hundreds of thousands of years of living in the Fertile Crescent provided more opportunities to cultivate the same types of foods and trade routes, resulting in agriculture being established earlier on. People in the Americas and Africas didn't have as much opportunity to establish successful farming because of how much the environment changes as you go from north to south compared to east to west. And I even left a link there where I describe and show the Fertile Crescent and the lengths of the different areas and the different continents in the world. As I was saying there, if you look at Americas and you look at Africa, they are longitudinally rather than latitudinally. If you look at Eurasia there, the people from China all the way to Europe, they could establish trade routes because the climate was the same. So they could travel, be within the same climate, and they could exchange seeds from Europe and they could cultivate them in China. And the same thing, they could switch them back and forth and they could grow and make farming stronger there. They could, after years and years and generations of different plants and crossbreeding, they could successfully make farming practices that expand across the whole continent. But if you look at Africa and the Americas there, it's not so skinny when you look at it in the broad term, but compared to Eurasia, that there's not much area here to actually cultivate. The only way you can expand is if you go up and down. But the second you change a 10 to 20 degrees latitudinally, you completely change the types of foods that you can grow, the types of animals that can live there. And that is what I and the beautiful one are trying to explain to this guy here, that these factors dictate how much more people can live in your towns and your cities. If you have the opportunity to have better farming practices, you can have much bigger of a civilization. You can build a much stronger of an army that you can now send around the world to go take over places. And that is why I, as well as the beautiful one, and many people in this world, many educated people, believe and think that Eurasia was able to conquer the world more than places like Africa and North America. The Mayans had very successful civilizations. They built huge pyramids. But were they traveling around the world? Were they sending conquistadors around the world to take these places over and to conquer them? It might have taken time. It might have taken 1,000 years longer. But because of the geography, because of the environment of Eurasia, they had more of an opportunity. Now, these opportunities dictated, as he said there in the beginning, as Hans said there in the beginning, that environment dictates your biological features. But your biological features, the Mayans weren't held back from exploring the world because of their bodies. They were held back because of their environment, because they didn't have as much opportunity to expand their civilization, to grow armies the same way that Eurasia was, the same way China and Europe was able to build armies up and to build civilizations and to spread ideas and information around. So now that we have a better understanding of why Eurasia was able to conquer the world through guns, germs, and steel over other areas of the world, and why the Fertile Crescent was the kind of the beginning of farming way back like 9 to 10,000 years ago. Actually, I didn't really discuss that here, so I'll show you the area of the Fertile Crescent. This is where a lot of religious books say that this is the beginning of civilization, where the beginning of life started, is in this exact area around Israel, around the Arabian areas, around Egypt and all this kind of stuff. And then farming spread from there. And then it was able to circulate and travel around Eurasia because of the strict and same climate it had. So now that we have a better understanding of that, let's move on to what Hans had to say to my response to that. And this is where I feel he's getting a little racist. And not racist in the sense that he's saying, well, you'll see the comment here. So Hans said, I just pointed out obvious area. I have no trouble with intermittent fasting, foods, etc. But history takes different courses for different people, mostly of biological differences. Environment is the reason we have them. But don't try to tell me that there was going to be an industrial revolution in Africa. Environment has its role in forming of the races, but the biological differences between them are a non-negotiable fact. So basically what he's trying to say is that our biological features and people from Africa would not have been able to have an industrial revolution because of who they are biologically, because of the makeup of their DNA. And this is why I feel he's being quite racist, because he's saying straight up that, Africa, North America, the Aboriginals, the Mayans would have never had an industrial revolution. Yeah, they definitely could have, and they might have, but it would have taken a lot longer. And because Eurasia was able to accomplish that first, because of the environment that they were in, because they were able to, as I said earlier, exchange ideas, exchange food, exchange all this type of stuff, that they were able to conquer and take over the world before other civilizations. Give it time and the Aboriginals of North America, the Mayans, could have taken over the world. They could have conquered the world. But because the environment of Asia and Europe, because of the environment that it was in, it allowed that process to speed up a lot faster. It didn't have anything to do with the peoples. It didn't have to do because they were African. It wasn't because they were black. It wasn't because Aboriginals were brown. It wasn't because it was all a dictate. It was all dictated because of their environment. So to even refute what I'm saying here, another person commented and responded. His name's Jaleel the Oak4, and he said, Hungarian experiment. I didn't know there was no successful farming in Africa and the Americas. And again, that's not what I'm saying here. It's not that farming wasn't successful, that they weren't able to farm and feed their people in those towns and those cities. It's that they weren't able to step that up to the next level and then make huge civilizations, make huge armies, have huge surpluses of food. So I responded to him and I said, it's not that it wasn't successful, but it wasn't able to be maintained and then developed. Here, where I live in the world, in Ontario, London, Ontario, Canada, we are at a great latitude for growing grapes and other specific foods and fruits. Now, I can walk across Canada at the same latitude and be able to plant the same types of food. But if I go north or I go south, because of the change in climate, that I am very limited and I now have to experiment with different food sources. So I basically just backed up and I said what I said earlier in this video about, Africa and Americas having longitudinally rather than latitudinally like Eurasia had. Now, again, this is all stemming from a book that I read, a very, very thick book and a very detailed and informative book that I've been referring to this whole time called Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond. If you guys are interested, if this is something that you're passionate about learning, then I really suggest going to pick up this book. I picked this book up when I was about 18 or 19 years old, and as I was reading it, I was like, this is an overload. Like, this is way too much for me. I only, from absorbing that book back then, I only probably absorbed about 20% of it, just because it is extremely informative and it's very heavily detailed and researched. But honestly, just even that 25% that I managed to absorb, and then when I go to read that book again, I'm gonna absorb more from it. It is very beneficial to people who are passionate about these types of ideas in the world, learning why certain areas of the world were able to conquer and take over other areas of the world. And Hans, I'm sorry, but it's not because of their biological differences. It's because of the environment that they were born into. They had to deal with the circumstances of their environment. And because their environment allowed them to cross thousands upon thousands of kilometers within the same type of environment, and then to exchange different types of foods and seeds, and to be able to take that and learn from that and grow from that, and to build ideas and build better farming practices, and then to go back and exchange those ideas with those same peoples, that excelled the rate of human mental growth. It allowed people to develop things like steel. It allowed people to cross the whole world in boats and spread germs to the Americas and infect and almost wipe out a whole civilization of people. Now, is that right? Is it wrong? That is another question. This isn't about ethics right now. Right now, we are trying to discuss how environment formed it rather than biological differences. And honestly, I don't understand how Hans here doesn't see the flaw in his own logic, because several times he has even said that. In his second comment here, he said environment is key for shaping any biological differences among humans. So does he not see that the environment is the main factor? And then along with the environment shaping these biological differences, having an environment where you can exchange ideas to other different types of people is going to make that growth go even faster. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you very much, Hans, for your racist kind of oddball comments and questions. I love that. I know the beautiful one enjoyed responding to those comments, and I'd love to know what you guys think. I'm sorry if this video was all over the place. Again, like I said, I'm still learning these types of things. I'm still trying to figure out where human existence started and how we are carrying, how we've manipulated things to get into this type of a society, and how we need to kind of go back to how our ancient ancestors used to live and structure their lives, and how to implement that into our modern day society to get the most optimal results in whatever situations that we want to get results in this life. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what you saw here, maybe you learned a little bit of something, maybe you're gonna go pick up that Guns, Germs, and Steel book by Jared Diamond, then make sure you go leave a comment for me in the description box below, and then go hit that like button on your way down there. I am the Hungarian Experiment.